Some say it's an organization, some say it's a cult. We're going to talk about the MeK Iranian organized cult today to let you know another angle of Iran riots and protests and nuclear fight and other troubles.
Do exactly as I say and you will not know death.
I am God!
To brainwash ourselves. Literally wash out our humanness from our brain.
Brainwashing, sex abuse, and even branding.
Is this a cult of ever? Yes, it is. It's a cult. I mean, it's the cult of cults.
Margaret Singer was an American clinical psychologist and researcher. She was the co-author of the book Cults in Our Midst. In this famous book, three main specifications of cults are mentioned. First, a group with a lifelong self-appointed leader who should be constantly praised and all his followers are only connected to himself in terms of faith and belief. Second, a group with totalitarian pyramidal organizational structure with absolute and one-sided authority from top to bottom. Third, carrying out planned psychological work and intellectual reconstruction, which is called brainwashing on each and every follower in order to create behavioral changes and radicalization in them. And get ready to do anything including leaving work and education, leaving home and family, stealing, committing illegal acts, and even murdering innocent people. In 1965, in Iran, three former members of the Second National Front and the Freedom Movement decided to create an armed group to fight against the Shah's regime. During the next couple of years, the group became active in terms of organizing human resources, staff, and armed operations against Shah. In 1971, SAVAK increased its attacks against the group and almost all of the core members of the group were arrested and most of them executed. The only core member who survived the execution was a person called Masoud Rajavi. Thus, most of the members of MeK gathered around him. Years later, the SAVAK revealed evidences showing that he was the only member that fully cooperated with SAVAK from the very beginning and had shared with them all he knew, which was a lot. After the victory of Islamic Revolution, Rajavi and his associates cleverly gathered the former scattered members of the group quickly and founded the Mujahideen Khalq of Iran organization, or MeK once again. The next action of the group in the turbulent condition of the early days of revolution was to create semi-secret and secret team houses throughout the country and collect weapons and ammunition and hide them. They also engaged in the recruitment and membership on a large scale, especially among teenagers and young people. It should also be noted that many people at that time were not aware of the group's hypocritical and eclectic ideology, and they were considered a pure and Muslim community. After the victory of the Islamic Revolution, MeK members considered themselves followers of the revolution, but in practice they used every opportunity to create tensions and chaos in the country. And if you're looking for the reason of it, I believe it was simply an asking for a share of the new system because they believed they were involved in fighting against Shah's regime and they have given blood and flesh for the Shah's fall. But when the majority went for the Islamic system with the leadership of a Islamist cleric called Imam Khomeini, therefore the left Islamists were left behind. And to be fair, the Islamists had done way more efforts and had given more blood and lives, and people were at the most harmony with their ideology than any other ideology. Anyway, in the opportunity created after the victory of Islamic Revolution, the MeK members quickly prepared for an armed operations and actions. Meanwhile, in the country's political arena, they were busy creating tensions and chaos between political groups so they could have more bargaining power in political layer. Finally, these tensions increased during the Cultural Revolution at universities and led to the street clashes. The MeK members played an effective role in inciting Bani Saad, the president at the time, against the Islamic Revolution. According to the agreement with the French embassy, which Bani Saad was probably one of the main mediator of this connection, at the end of 1980, Rajavi secretly went to France, and in May 1981, after returning, he arranged a meeting within the group and announced the so-called Path of Struggle till the overthrow of the Islamic Republic. In this trip to France, which lasted between 20 days to 1 month, Rajavi coordinated with Western countries for an armed struggle against the Islamic Republic of Iran and obtained their approval to be recognized by the Western powers in the first day of government's overthrow. With the rise of political tensions in the country and the removal of Bani Saad from the presidency, the MeK members, who had been prepared for an armed war with the Islamic Republic for a long time by announcing the beginning of the armed phase of their organization on June 30, 1981, caused many armed riots in different parts of the country. The first official operation was exploding a bomb in the waiting hall of the train station in Qom, with 7 casualties and 50 injured. The MeK took the responsibility. The next day, a bomb was found next to a girls' high school in Tehran and defused. They started to target Iranian prominent figures and started with the most important ones. 3 days later, a bomb in a small cassette recorder exploded in front of Ayatollah Khamenei, the current supreme leader, while he was addressing a speech about freedom of women and their right to be educated and their right to be present at the social arena. However, he survived miraculously, although he lost his right hand capability. The next day, on 28th June 1981, a powerful bomb went off at the headquarters of the Islamic Republican Party (IRP) in Tehran, while a meeting of party leaders was in progress. 74 leading officials of Islamic Republic of Iran were killed, including Chief Justice Ayatollah Muhammad Beheshti, who was the second most powerful figure in the Iranian Revolution after Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. 4 cabinet ministers, health, transport, telecommunication, and energy ministers, 27 members of the parliament, and many other government officials were killed. Rajavi, the leader of the MeK, a year later in a speech mentioned this operation and accepted the responsibility. And many years after that day, in 2006, US Department of State country report said that in 1981, the MeK detonated bombs in the head office of the Islamic Republic Party and the Premier's office, killing some 70 high-ranking Iranian officials in its website. However, it never ended there. Assassinations of leading officials and active supporters of the Islamic Republic by the MeK were to continue. Their effort to kill Imam Khomeini failed repeatedly, but after failing in this evil intention, they targeted the president and the prime minister. In the afternoon of August 13th, 1981, Muhammad Ali Rajai, president of Iran, and Muhammad Jawad Bahonar, prime minister, together with several national security and military personnel, participated in the National Security Council Assembly in the prime minister's central building, and as a result of an explosion of a strong bomb that was placed in a bag, the president and the prime minister and several others were killed. The bodies of the casualties of the disaster were burned to such an extent that they were not able to be identified in any way, and Mr. Bahonar and Rajai could only be recognized by the form of a scalp and teeth. MeK took the responsibility. After they started to kill ordinary people and what they called the pyramid's body, the most extensive form of riots that they made was on September 1981, in which a number of armed supporters from 3 critical points of Tehran fired aerial shots and set fire to some car tires and buses. The operational units were ordered to shoot anyone who tries to stop the demonstrations in any way. Well, the result was good for them, and they still stick to the riot style. Anyway, the performance of the organization in the second half of 1981 is varied differently. In more than 3/4 of the terrorist operations, the victims were workers of independent trades like grocers, cloth sellers, bakers, etc. And less than 1/4 of these operations were official guard forces and cops. A very low percentage also included clerics and upper ranks of the government. In dozens of the cases, the victims were brutally tortured at the team houses, where typically the bathrooms were used as a soundproof torture chamber. And I won't tell you much about their wild torture methods, which you can search for yourself. Iran, after years of defending its borders against Saddam's regime for 8 years and defending with separatist groups in East and West and South, and also fighting against the MeK terrorist activities, at the same time came to a kind of slight stability in 1989. And the war was seized by the United Nations and accepted and approved by both sides after 8 years, and the country was about to rebuild. But suddenly, the MeK members who were located at Iraqi camps at the time invaded the west borders with high armed and equipment supplied by Saddam and his allies, which caused 412 Iranian casualties. During the next 40 years, though they failed to overthrow the government, but they were completely successful in killing 12,000 innocent Iranians so far, including nuclear scientists. And it's good to know the MeK was listed as a terrorist organization by the US State Department in 1997, but after the US invasion of Iraq in 2003, MeK leaders started lobbying the US to reverse the designation. And in return, they could be so beneficial for the US goals in Iran. And they got out. The first accusation of Iran having a nuclear bomb and the starting point of Iran nuclear file was created by the MeK spokesperson in 2002 in a press conference. Although he was just giving some data about Iran nuclear facilities, and the nuclear weapon issue was just an allegation that he made. All the Western media and the government bought his allegation and lies and used it to pressure and sanction Iranian people since then. But how dare some Iranians will be able to do such against their compatriots? Well, it's a matter of brainwashing and controlling and pressuring minds and families of members.
This group is not fit to replace the Iranian government. It's a cult around a disappeared, possibly dead leader, Masoud Rajavi, and his widow, Mariam Rajavi. It brainwashes people, it forces them to give up their earthly goods, to divorce their spouses, to renounce their children, and it keeps them in camps.
Brainwashing members. Members must give up their goods and forget about their families and children. And about the divorcing their spouses that she mentioned, the famous example is Mariam Rajavi herself, who divorced her husband and married the leader of the cult in the same day. Actually, her husband gifted her to the leader.
به نام خدا، به نام مسعود و مریم. من به عنوان یک مجاهد خلق، به عنوان یک فرزند ناچیز خلق، جز این که بگم با تک تک سلول هایم به مسعود و مریم تبریک میگم و سراپای وجودم شوق و خوشحالی ایدئولوژیکه چیزی برای گفتن.
And as the separated members are telling their stories of the cult and what was going on inside, it was not stopped there. And Mariam was telling all the women in the cult that you are divorced from your husbands and are married to Masoud Rajavi.
با ما بحث اینو میکرد که در رابطه با شما، یعنی در رابطه با شما زنها، بحث وقتی طلاق از همسرتونه، این طرف قضیه باید بحث ازدواج با مسعود باشه. و ما همیشه اینو به عنوان مثلا میگفتیم یک تست ایدئولوژیکه، یعنی واقعا من هیچگاه فکر نمی کردم که این یه روزی پیرهن عمل بپوشه، یعنی به طور واقعی یه روزی مسعود بخواد مثلا من خودم رو با
And seemingly it was not just ideological but also physical too, which drags this cult into the categories of sex cults besides the category of terrorist cults.
حتی مثلا میبوسیدی خوششون میومد، یعنی یه جوری چیز میکردن که مثلا ببوسی رجوی رو.
من یه دفعه دیدم که مثلا اعضای ارشد شورای رهبری شروع کردن به درآوردن لباساشون. حدود 25 نفر از اعضای ارشد شورای رهبری بودن که اینا با درآوردن لباس، اینا که شروع کردن لباساشون درآوردن و لخت شدن، بقیه کسایی هم که همرده من بودن یا هم سطح من بودن هم دیدم اینا هم شروع کردن به لباس درآوردن و مریم رجبی و بقیه همه دارن تشویق میکنن که این حوزه شماست، شیرجه باید بزنید، بیاین لخت بشین جلوی رهبری. و همینطور جلسه ادامه پیدا کرد و به مدت تقریبا 3-4 ساعت همینطور برنامه رقص بود و همینطور میرقصیدن و یه اتاق خواب که اتاق خواب مسعود بود، تخت 2 نفره و دیگه همه چی آماده بود برای اینکه، ولی خب مسعود خودش اون موقع نبود. من تقریبا از ساعت 8 شب که رفتم اونجا تا 12 شب اینجورا بود که دیگه مسعود اومد و اون اولین شبی بود که ما با هم
I strongly recommend you watch this full documentary and I will put the link in the description below for you. Well, some say there are more than 300,000 people living only in Tehran province who are directly or indirectly related to MeK group. They are whether a relative of a jailed or escaped or killed MeK member, that in any case it could be bring hate and the sense of revenge in the relatives. You can add to it the hundreds of people who are looking for a small job with a high payment. So there are elements among the detained ones in the street riots of 1999, 2009, 2017, 2019 and the latest ones in 2022, who confessed that all they had to do was sending a video clip to the specific number and doing something mad in front of camera and get paid thousands of dollars for that. Some of them were members of MeK trained in US and Israel military basements in Syria or Iraq. Specifically in recent riots in Iran, some figures of MeK appeared in the Saudi Arabia affiliated channels such as Al Arabiya, Al Hadith, Channel 24 Saudi, and while openly admitting the presence of terrorist members of the MeK in the protests in the streets and causing chaos, they said basically the forces of the Mujahideen organization for such days have been trained and formed. For example, one of their duties is to burn the pictures of the leaders of Iran and Qasem Soleimani in the streets. Well, let's get back to the Al Jazeera report today.
But they are getting support. The rallies, the travel, all that costs money. So who is funding the MEK?
On the issue of sponsorship, we have lack of information, accurate information, but there is a sort of speculation.
I think it's probably the Saudis and the Emiratis that are funding the MEK as a way to antagonize Iran and to pay it back for Iran's support for Houthis in Yemen, for Shia dissidents in Saudi Arabia's eastern province.
Now, the main supporter of the organization is the Arab Saudi.
The recent conference for MK, Turki Faisal, the former director of intelligence, did actually attend and deliver a speech there.
For the record, the MEK has always denied it's financed by Saudi Arabia, but it gets funding from somewhere, enough to pay those high-profile US politicians we mentioned earlier.
There are people in the Trump administration very high up who have taken tens of thousands of dollars from the MEK. I'm thinking of John Bolton, the National Security Advisor, who has been one of their most important speakers at so-called conferences or rallies that they hold. John Bolton certainly has taken a lot of money from them and is in effect a kind of lobbyist for them. So has Rudy Giuliani, President Trump's personal
As you see, the Western
lawyer.
countries, especially US, continue to support this call, officially or unofficially, although there are hundreds of evidence against them. However, they are free, facing no sanctions, no restrictions, meanwhile doing their best in their terrorist attacks inside and outside of Iran, attacking Iran embassies, even in European countries, making cases and trials for Iranian officials by lobbying with high-rank officials of Congress and MPs of Western countries, and of course freely activating and using thousands of troll accounts in Twitter and Instagram as a tool of spreading violence and riots and hate speech and whatever they want without any restrictions. Well, that's the world we live in. Okay, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell if you want to know more from Iran, not from the fake news. I'm just a regular Iranian researcher and activist trying to narrate my country to you all.